Well, hello everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk about the difference between orbs and bubbles. Now, orbs, in my definition, I'm talking about spirit orbs and things like this that are spiritual, mystical phenomena that are seen many times. You'll see them in holy places where people might be taking a family photo or something like that, and then all of a sudden there'll be an orb or this round sphere over somebody's shoulder or something like that popping up in the photo. No one can really explain why it's happening. A lot of people want to think that there's a problem with the camera, but when multiple people take the same photo with different cameras, they all get the same orb. And how is this happening? How can everyone's camera malfunction like that? Well, I got an answer for it. It's not malfunctioning. And I believe that what you're seeing with these spirit orbs are actual manifestations of spirits. They might be spirit guides. They might be people that we love and lost that are trying to let us know in some way, shape, or form that I'm still with you. You're not alone. These types of things, when these little signs pop up that can't really be explained. Now, I've had a lot of this happen in Rome City since the time I walked onto the property in the year 2000. There's been countless times that visitors had taken pictures with me or other folks, taking pictures, and I might happen into it. And they would say, "My gosh, what's going on?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, you got all these orbs all around you. It's like they're following you. We took a picture over here, and you got all these orbs. We took a picture of you over here, you got all these orbs." And several people with different cameras all reporting the same thing. And it wasn't just attached to me. It was also attached to certain areas of the building and artifacts that I'd put in there, different statues. One of the statues that I have here in my studio with me of Our Lady of Lourdes, that a lot of people who had visited the property during my time there would have been able to touch and feel and, caress a little bit and thank. It's Our Lady of Lourdes. It's a beautiful 5-foot-tall statue. I used to keep it in the apparition room, as they called it, which was the upstairs chapel that the sisters had when they were there. It had also been standing on display, standing on display in the main chapel for many, many years, and a lot of people would come and take their picture with it. Many times this orb would appear. Many times it would be a big blue orb. I mean, it would be very, very prominent, much larger than the regular white or silver orbs that would be seen most of the time. Sometimes gold, sometimes a little bit on the reddish side. Not all orbs are the same color in my experience. So we actually had a picture one time somebody took out on Holy Family Hill of one of the beautiful pine trees. And it was a great day, and they were taking this picture, and they wanted to get this lone photo of this pine tree. And when they took their photo of it, when it developed, it was decorated like it was a Christmas tree. There were so many orbs placed specifically all on the boughs of this large pine tree, and all in different colors. And it was just as if heaven had tried to play with these people a little bit, and they decorated this tree that they were admiring so much, and they decorated it like it was an actual Christmas tree with all these different colored balls all over it. I don't know how that can be explained, and nobody in the photography world was able to explain it either, because all these orbs stayed within the bounds of the shape and the design of the tree. And it was just an amazing photograph, and no one was ever able to explain that. I'd had critics to say, "Oh, that's just a lens artifact, or that's easily explainable." I said, "Well, then tell me about how the uniformity of how the orbs and the spheres are placed on this background of this tree, and why are they so many different colors? How does this one come out gold, this one come out red, this one come out white, this one come out blue. How does that happen? They couldn't explain that. They just said, well, things happen. Well, try explaining it. Try thinking about it a little bit longer and get back to me. Well, these orbs would appear, all throughout the place, all throughout the years, and we never knew when it would happen or why it would happen. There was one photo one time that a young lady by the name of Patty Pope, honest, that was her name, Patty Pope. She had come. We were having one of our family days of prayer and healing, which would happen on the third Sundays of each month. And Irv Kloska and I were standing outside the chapel doors down in front of this, between these two large pine trees that were out there. And at that time, people were watching the mystical event of the sun spinning in the sky back to the west behind us. So Patty wanted to get a picture of her Uncle Irv and I together with the background of the sun spinning behind us. And so we lined up to take this photo, and Irv put his arm around me. And Irv is much taller than I am and much larger man, so I looked like a little dwarf next to him, so to speak. But when the photo came back and we saw what it developed, I completely disappeared. I was covered in just a wall and a stack of orbs. There must have been, a couple hundred or more covering up my entire body. The picture looked like Irv just had his arm around a stack of white or silver spheres, these orbs sitting outside. I completely disappeared. I was hidden from view. Everyone wanted to know how they did that photo. And Irv and I just kind of laughed about it. And I said, I don't know what happened. I said, did you feel anything? He says, well, I always feel something. I said, yeah, I do too. It was a special day. But why that happened and why it was me that disappeared into this pile of orbs and not Irv himself. And just a lot of questions that need to be answered on that one. It still makes us laugh, but it also makes us shake our head too. It's like we don't know why it happened or how it happened or why I was the focus of these things and why it's happened so many times. There's been other times when we'd be doing the rosary and things like this, and I'd typically, when the groups came in to do the rosary, I would typically defer to sitting towards the back of the room just so I didn't become a distraction or an obstacle to somebody's faith walk at that time. I didn't want to try to influence them in any way that wasn't natural for them. So I would take a back seat and sit there. And there was a time where a family came in behind everyone when the rosary had already started. So rather than making a distraction for the rest of the people already praying, they sat in the back row as well. And a couple of the kids just stared at me the whole time. And I thought, well, they're kids and, it's okay. When the rosary was all done, the kids pulled out their phones and they'd had video. And they had video taking of me. And they could see as I was sitting there that there were sparks and orbs all about my shoulders. There was sparks coming off of me. Now, I wasn't feeling anything, but they were seeing it. These were young children. And so they took their mother's phone, I guess it was, and they started videoing me as they were sitting there because this was something they'd never seen before. And I'd never seen it before, and nobody had ever seen it before. But it was just another one of those things. And I had to try to explain to this family to comfort them that I wasn't pulling any magic. I'm just along for the ride like everybody else. But I just don't need any more explaining as to why these things are happening, but they did. And so I tried to explain to them a little bit about the presence of these spirit orbs and what I believe happens to our souls and our spirit when we die from this world. It's not the end. We just move on. And I try to tell everybody that asks me or has any concern about death and dying that there's nothing to be afraid of. You're going to die. We're all going to die. And within moments after our death and realization, when our spirit realizes that our life on earth is finally over, they realize it was no big deal because they are been opened up to a new room of life and beauty and things like this that they really can't understand and never thought was possible. But here it is happening to them in that moment, and they're realizing, wow, my earthly life is over, but my heavenly life is just about to begin, and I hope I get to go in through the gates of heaven, and I don't have to wait, an extremely long time to go and join, the choir of angels in heaven, because that's our goal. We want all of us to be saints, because everyone in heaven, I believe, needs to be a saint, and that's why we have, the purification that needs to happen many times for our lost souls or not quite ready souls in purgatory. So purgatory is a very happy place, very, very hopeful. Everyone knows that they're going to the party. They just have to get prepared. And their souls need to be prepared, and they need to be made ready to be in the presence of God. It's a great place to be and a great feeling to have. So this is what the spirit orbs are about. And I think that they come back into our circles and where we are at, and when we are contemplating the beauty of God in heaven and the petitions that Jesus gave us, to love one another, these types of things. We're on this earth right now to be made ready. We're being tested, and I think part of the hardships of our life right now is designed to help us either be prepared for our life in heaven, and whether or not we give of our daily work and effort on this globe, are we actually feeling the divine indwelling of the Holy Trinity? Are we working towards that? Are we trying to make our existence day in, day out to be about the furtherance of God's quest, God's request of us, and things like that? So I think these spirit orbs, and we've seen them in great numbers and in individual numbers, and it's amazing how many times like this big blue ball would show up. And I don't know why it's not happening anymore, but it did on a fairly regular basis. And it would happen a lot when we had families in that would come and either spend a weekend as part of a private retreat or part of a larger retreat. Many times the families would come and they'd bring their kids with them. And what would happen at night, because there wasn't much to do around there, is the adults would sit and talk, maybe have a couple beers, some wine, snacks and things like that, down around in the common area in the lounge. We'd get large gatherings together, and people would want to tell stories. They'd want to hear stories. They'd want to ask me questions. We'd stay up late into the evening talking about these things. Well, in the meantime, all these kids had to have something to do. So it was a huge building, long hallways, 3 floors. And so the kids would end up taking off around the building and exploring and doing things. And I was a little concerned about that because there was a few areas that could have caused them some trouble. But for the most part, the kids were sort of like playing tag or something like that, or hide and seek kinds of things. So we would hear the kids running around upstairs because of the thundering feet. But it was always good to know that we knew where the kids were because we could hear them upstairs running around, so no one really got worried about that. As long as we heard the feet running around, we knew that everything was fine. Well, every now and then, this herd of kids would come running into the room and exhausted, almost out of breath, saying, "Where is it?" And we'd say, "Where's what?" He says, "Where's that big blue ball?" And the adults are saying, "What big blue ball?" And I'm thinking that they were looking for like a gym ball or something like this. And they says, "No, there's a ball of light that is around the building. We're finding it in different places. We're trying to find it. Where is it?" And I said, "I have no idea. Keep looking." And so they'd run back upstairs and running around, and we'd all look at each other, the adults, and they say, "What's going on?" I said, "I think there's a spirit orb up there playing with the kids." And they said, "Spirit orbs?" I said, "Yes." I said, "This is an old a very holy and virtuous place. And I said, I think there's a lot of spirits that like coming back here to, be a part of things and try to excite the new visitors today, in some way, shape, or form. Let them know, hey, we're here. There's nothing to be afraid of. No one's going to get hurt. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, no. So we see these things. They pop up from time to time, especially with children, the ball of blue light. Now, I wasn't making the connection, but a lot of people then afterwards said, well, it's a ball of blue light. That must be Mary. And I said, well, that makes sense to me. He says, why is that? Well, she's kind of like a mom. She's a grandma. She's playing with the kids. Who wouldn't? She was a girl too. And, don't, put it out of her realm of possibilities that she could have a playful side. So great for her. Great for the kids. Let's see where it goes. Well, these kids would be running around trying to find that ball of blue light, and they would talk about it, and they still talk about it sometimes when I meet up with these kids nearly 20 years later. They're now adults, and they tell their children about it when they come to visit and tell them about the things, and their kids can't believe what mom and dad are telling them. But it's a sensational story, but it was very, very true. And this is something that's lived with these children who've grown into adults, and hopefully that was a seed that was planted at that time that is going to make these people be on track to try to live their lives and in their families as the Holy Family did. And that was within, pure love for one another and admiration of being each other's biggest fan. So that's the whole goal of this, or at least one of them, as far as living life with purity, is to try to bring more people to this awareness. You don't have to be Catholic. I mean, this is not a Catholic thing. And I get irritated a lot of times when people say, well, I'm not Catholic. I say, well, you don't need to be to live a life of purity. It's not about being Catholic. I don't care if you become a Catholic. I just want you to understand what Catholics do truly believe and what you can choose to take with you and be a part of your life. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to try to not win over the Catholics so much as to the non-Catholics and even non-believers who might think that this is all bullshit, but it's really not, and it's there, and it explains a lot of things and a lot of questions that you might have, as long as you can leave your personal intellect behind and try to believe in the possibility of what the Holy Spirit has for us each and every day. Now, this leads me then to what are bubbles. Now, bubbles are, I think, little safety zones that people who are questioning a lot of things or are triggered by certain things or have a limited understanding of the worldview on things, they live their life in bits and sound bites and snapshots. They're not seeing the entirety of what's going on. They don't see how this mosaic actually pulls everything together. And it pulls everything together towards truth. When things are being pulled apart, that's towards lies and distortion. And that's a lot of times what bubbles do to people. When people want to live in these safety bubbles, these identity bubbles that we have going on right now in the world, they become very, very fragile, just like the skin of that bubble. And so if you think of it being like a soap bubble and people want to hide inside that, say, you can't touch me, my bubble this is my bubble of belief. Well, it's your bubble of belief that came from you and from man and not from God. So the first part is you have to question whether or not it's truthful or valid. And I would submit that many of these bubbles are not truthful nor valid. And the only thing that might be truthful is God's word and God's requests of us through the 10 Commandments. And remember, they're not the 10 suggestions. They're the 10 Commandments. So God had a plan, and God deals in pillars of salt. So keep that in mind as you try to put these things together. Now, with the bubbles, what happens with these people who want to hide inside these safety zones of these bubbles for protection, when that bubble is burst with truth, the reality that God puts forth, the actual truths And these people inside these bubbles have to finally admit the truth to things and not this distorted view of their beliefs that they put together as their own man-made constructs. When they have to deal with the forcefulness and the truth of God's truth, their bubbles are popped and they become very, very vulnerable. They feel they are. Actually, what is happening is they're being let back into the truth of God's plan and God's word. And so they feel uncomfortable in that. And they feel like they're more fragile, and now they're in danger of something. And so that's why they see other people around them that have already been living in the truth. They see them as being dangerous. This goes back to my podcast I did some months back about Plato's Republic, the Hermit of Loretto, and our plan for the world. And so this all goes together. When people's, man-made reality it gets proven wrong, they fight back. And they will find that you are the problem, not they are the problem. But what they have to do is they have to admit that God is right and they may have been wrong, which they were. So this is what we're heading into in this season right now. A lot of bubbles are being popped right now. And it's folks like you, me, and the other guy, they're going to have to deal with this. And so when you find that someone around you is going through one of these bubbles being popped, and reality is starting to really bite them in the ass, you have to be aware of that, and you have to be ready, because you have to have a plan for this, because when these people come out of these bubbles, they're angry, and they're going to react. And I can guarantee you that there's going to be a lot of reaction coming up in the next month. And it's already happening because a lot of people's bubbles are being popped. And they're not doing well with it. And so we have to be careful about this. We have to try to be there ready with our orbs in place of their bubbles to comfort these people with these orbs. Now, the orbs are truthful. Orbs don't lie. Orbs don't tell stories. Orbs tell you that you're on the right track and that God is the distant, point that you want to be going to. So keep that in mind as we go through the differences between our orbs and our bubbles that's going on in the world right now. Orbs are ordained by God. They're gifts from God. They're part of God. They're part of heaven's existence in these spirit orbs. Bubbles are made by man. They're not filled with truth. They don't have God's backing. Okay, but they're part of a learning curve. I think they can be there for these people that are hiding in these bubbles, that they can be shown the truth. And this is the only way they're going to make it through. They're going to resist. They're going to have pains with it. My gosh, Stockholm Syndrome and brainwashing is a hard thing to come back from. But we have so many people that are troubled and have been living with lies, and they don't know how to live any other way right now because they think that everyone else who's living in the truth and by God's word and virtue are the wrong ones, and they're the ones who are trying to threaten their existence. So this is how this victim mentality goes with these bubbles and these spheres of protection that they want to put around themselves. So it's a terrible thing that happens. Sometimes it's with the helicopter moms and the overprotection of society. For those people who are too weak and afraid to make a decision for themselves, they will give their voice to somebody else to say, well, I'll do what they do because I don't know what to do, and they seem to know what they're doing. But the person that they're following is living a lie too. They just have a bigger, brighter bubble. And so these people are attracted to these things because they think it's safe in these bubbles. It's really not. It's just delaying the inevitable. Because, like I said before, we all die. And in that time when we die, you will know everything. And this is why I say, when that moment of truth comes, and if you enter into the gates of heaven, you have gone way beyond faith in your life. You no longer have faith. I submit that there is not a single faithful person in heaven, that everyone in heaven knows. They know the truth. They don't believe in the truth. They know the truth. And that's what heaven is. Heaven is a community of people that all know the truth, and they all agree, and they all can't deny the truth. And this is what heaven is. It's not that people believe in it, because like I say before, faith gives you plausible deniability, but knowledge makes you responsible. And it's many times, I've said it many times before about faith being like being a Cubs fan, the Chicago Cubs fan. Every year you think this is the year, you buy a new shirt, you buy a new hat, you get out there and you start representing for the team, and everyone says, yeah, this is the year, we're going to win it all, blah, blah, blah. Well, August comes along and the ownership starts selling off the key players, and the season's, basically abandoned, and everyone says to each other, well, your heart was in the right place. Well, that gives you plausible deniability. But if you know something, and you're given knowledge of something, especially if you're given knowledge by the Holy Spirit directly, you become responsible for that. Because for you to deny that is your choice, and that can only basically lead in a one-way path down the tube and away from heaven and into hell. So I highly recommend that when you're given this knowledge, that you believe it and you take it to heart, and it's not going to be a problem, because you're going to be so happy in that regard. You're not going to want to leave. Everyone I've spoken to that's had, a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience like I experienced, we all relate the same things. It's just, you don't want to leave. That's the place to be. It's like, you just look around at each other, you just say, isn't this great? Isn't this the best place ever? And no one wants to leave. And I certainly didn't want to. And I never thought I'd ever say that. But I was only 41 years old at that time. And boy, I think about that a lot. That when friends pass away and I'm going to funerals and things like that, I stopped crying at funerals some time ago, because I know that these people are in a far better place and they're happy. And it's not something to be scared about. It's something to look forward to. It's something why you should prepare. Prepare now. So accept the orbs. Accept the presence of these things. If you think that something is around you, or you're feeling somebody's presence in a moment, you're probably right. And those spirit orbs, those friends and family who've gone on before you, they're there with you. They're enjoying things. They're encouraging you. And these are things that you should hold on to, and you should say, yes, thank you. And I'll be with you soon. And they're waiting for you, and it's going to be okay. But in the meantime, be ready to accept these spirit orbs, and be ready for these people with their bubbles popping around you, if you have those in your family and your circle of friends and things like that. Get ready for it. Be kind. Don't be judgmental with these folks. Be accepting for them when they want to come back into the fold, because this is part of what we have to do on earth. It's tough. It's supposed to be tough. And it's designed that way. But there is hope, and there is knowledge that you can have and you can gain. And I'm just trying to tell you right now that I hope that your faith turns to knowledge, and that you truly believe and know before you go, so that you can be ready for the next life. Because this one is very transitory, and I'm not trying to, be a merchant of death or anything like that, because living a life of purity means you can now, to the best of your ability, to live life on this earth. Because this is what it's about. Do your best work, always. And when your body gives out, encourage others to do their best work. Not just partial work. Full, best work they possibly can. Use your gifts God has given you. Ask for more if you need them. God will deliver to a willing spirit. Sure, he's going to nurture that spirit. He's going to say, yeah, I see you. I'm going to give you more. Go get it done. This is how it goes. My dog doing some scratching here. So River's doing fine, everybody. Anyone who asks about River, yeah, she's doing great right now. So she's my girl, and she just woke up from a nap. So, but anyway, in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.